not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, so don't base anything I say off these videos. Just doing it for pure entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor, obviously, and I am not, you know, anything I say shouldn't persuade you to buy, sell, hold, any of that. I'm just giving my thoughts, like I said before, basically because everyone in my household is tired of hearing about stock market shit, especially AMC. People are sick of that shit. Um, I want to jump in real quick because AMC is one of those ones, man, it's hard to believe we're at where we're at right now. Um, at some point, I thought AMC was probably going to be life changing, game changing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I carried that belief for a long, long time. I'm not saying it can't squeeze. I'm not saying it can't moass, but I have gotten to the point where I haven't lost hope. There's always hope, right? There's always hope. But I have lost some sort of the faith in the fact that it won't be manipulated back down. Um, and I'm not saying it's by the board or by Adam Aaron or anyone like that, but I just don't know who, what, why, or when. But it always gets kind of hammered down. Um, the potential, I believe, is still there. You look at the volume; it's much lower, obviously. Um, One of the other reasons I think it hasn't been able to, or one of the reasons I think it's not in moass territory anymore, is the fact that we have so many people holding bags right now that just want to get out, that are probably, deep, put a lot of money into it just because how much hype there was behind it, and rightfully so at the time. But I do believe that, if it ever does pop up a few bucks and people get to their average or just above their average or even maybe just below their average, I think they're going to dump. And if there is manipulation, which I've never had factual evidence that there was, but if there is manipulation, obviously they can take those shares that people sold and work the shit out of them. And any buy orders, they're going to suppress into a dark pool. I believe that's what happens. So I think that's why AMC is where it's at now. I'm not saying without 100% that it could never squeeze. I think the potential's there, and I'm not going to sell my shares until I see the right amount of money. So to answer the question I've been asked before, yes, I'm still holding my shares. Am I buying? Very lightly. It's more of like if I have a couple bucks left over, I'll buy a share here and there. And it's really just to average down as well, because the way I'm playing it now is, and I've said this before, I said in a lot of my old videos, you can fact check, if it never moasses, I'll play it like a long-term play and get out when I think it's time. So I do believe, at some point or another, it should have more value. Now, if it goes down and, goes to zero and nothing, then I've already assessed my risk and determined that I could do that. So that's where I'm at with it. I don't think it's impossible for it to squeeze, and I would love for it to happen. There's good news, bad news all the time. But I guess after a while, there's so many good, positive news articles or whatever coming out that should have triggered something that hasn't. It kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Like I said, and I don't know who, what, why, or when. Who's the one manipulating it? I don't know. Is it both sides? Is it one side? Is it two sides? Is it three sides? I don't know what it is, but I do believe someone's doing that. I could be wrong, but like I said, anytime there's good news, you see it dump. Bad news, you see it dump. So, like I said, I haven't given up hope. There's always hope, but I definitely think um, moass is definitely very far, far, far away from what could happen with AMC. Now, I would love for me just to wake up one day and it happens. Oh my God, we did it. We're rich. Hoorah, hoorah. But I'm skeptical with it at this point. Like I said, I'm not selling my shares. I'm holding. I still buy lightly to average down. But the reason I average down is just like any other play at this point. You average down to get lower and lower. So that way, if it ever pops, you got yourself an exit strategy. So that's where I'm at with it. GameStop also, I won't say that GameStop is GameStop's different. Um, a lot of the difference comes just for the fact that GameStop has so much money on hand. They're building business, and I'm not saying that AMC hasn't tried to build business. They have. There's been a lot of things they've done that have been positive, and they're going to continue to be positive, and that's why I'm still invested. Um, I don't think it will just go out of business and go to zero. It could happen with the right manipulation, and it keeps happening. But the way I look at it is AMC at this point. If I can average down to $4 a share, and it pops to 5, I'm probably going to jump most of my shares out. I got a lot of shares, so that would still be a lot, So, um, but that's where I'm at with it now. I know before people were always against, we got to hold. But I know so many people, even personally, people that don't have a good, well, I won't say don't have a good living, but they don't make a lot of money. They live like an average person, check to check, week to week. Big bills pop up and it's a struggle. And I know a lot of people that held through, and you really can't blame anyone but yourself, obviously, but have held through and have said, damn, man, if I would have just pulled out, I would have had $300,000 or $50,000 or whatever the case was at the time. And now you're sitting there looking at it in the negative. It can get depressing. It can get down. That's why the stock market's it's kind of a funny place, because you take your L's and you take your dubs. After a while, you get more wins than you do in losses. So it's a learning experience. And like I said, I'm not totally down on AMC. I'm not saying AMC will never squeeze, because I do believe it has the possibility. There's a lot of things that could trigger it, but what we've seen is things that would normally trigger a squeeze or things like that have just been, I don't know. It's just, I think you know what I'm trying to say. It's a revolving type thing. Like, where are the shares going, and no one's gonna ever find out. There's so much that's probably just not gonna get uncovered. I hate to be cynical and sad about it, like it's never gonna happen, but there's some things we can control, and there's some things you can't control in life. So that's one of those things that everyone fought the good fight. They thought they were doing the right thing, and hey, maybe it still will, but at this point, I just don't see it happening. So fundamentally, I'm playing it as a long-term play. Like I said, if it gets up to over my average, and I think that's why another reason it might not squeeze is because there's so many people that think this way, not just myself. And I'm not just doing it. Like, if I thought everyone would still hold the line and be strong, ape strong together type shit, and it went up to 5 and we'd hold till 10, 15, 20, then yeah, I would probably stick with it. But just the sentiment, people I know, people I'm reading online, even comments, I think people are going to get to where they get those people are going to get to the point of, hey man, it's just time to get out, so that's what it is. Someone says, should we sell YYAI? You got to make your own decisions. I made a video on it earlier. They have a reverse stock split was announced. I haven't had the best experience with reverse stock splits, so you got to make your own assessment. I didn't sell yet because I'm kind of waiting to see how it goes. Every once in a while on a reverse split, there's kind of that little bump you get, and for that, I'm kind of waiting for that. Play it by ear, but yeah, I don't know. That's totally up to you what you would do with your YYAI. Kind of a weird thing because BYND Beyond went huge, and it was almost like, oh my God, we're gonna flip it into YYAI and double it. But it's almost, those type of deals are almost impossible. It can happen, but to get 2 squeezes back to back, I mean, the volume was huge. So there's still things to assess on it. And YDKG, that's another one that a lot of people were talking about. So I'm still in both of them, just playing it by ear. And that's how it is. So, damn, more trolls than anything. Let's see what we got. Nope. All right. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. I just wanted to come in, jump in, make it live. It's so much to say, but so nothing to say all at once, really. I think that's just where I stand with it. I still hold AMC. I still, like I said, randomly buy just to average down. But I guess my faith in it has kind of depleted a little bit. And I think most people, when they're in the play long enough and they've seen enough and you do enough investigating, Now, I'm not saying it's the board, or I'm not saying it's the market maker or anyone else. I'm not putting it on anyone. It's someone, somehow, somewhere, some group, something is creating it to not go where it should go. And that's just my personal opinion. I have no factual evidence. Obviously, I'm not an investment advisor or a financial advisor, so really don't base anything off what I say. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. Like I said, GameStop's a little different. I think GameStop has money on hand. I think it's hard to say because, you know, I don't want to say there won't be a squeeze. I think it could squeeze, but I think GameStop's more of a long-term, kind of like maybe like a Tesla type squeeze. Maybe, I believe when it pops, I think it'll pop back up and stay up. That's just my personal thoughts on it. So, um, I've been buying GameStop for a while as well. Obviously, it costs more than AMC, and I always say I'm only invested in what I'm willing to lose at the moment. So for me, sometimes it's a share here and there. Sometimes it's two shares. Sometimes I go a few days without buying any. You know, got tied up in Beyond and made some good money there. Left some just in case. You know, Beyond might not be over, but it seems like it is. I sold probably, I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say like 80% of my shares. Left a little bit in there. So, any other ones? You know, there's, like I said, I jumped into True Pharmaceuticals. I think it's TTRX. Um, there's a few of them that you know, you can almost just pick any random any random stock in the market we're in right now. It's bound to go up somewhat. Not any stock. You know what I'm saying? It's just we're in a good. Obviously, the last couple days are red, but if you go back, I mean, quantum computing, if you were in D-Wave and those, you know, or hopefully you're up on those, you know, but even if you bought late and you just bought into some of those long-term type, I believe, quantum computing stocks like Nebia, MBS, NBI, US, QBTS, I don't know, UROY, stuff like that. I think that, you know, if you bought into those, and you bought high and it dumped recently, those are ones I would still personally hang on to for long term. It doesn't have to be a 10, 15-year hold, but I think that they got a good pump coming in the next year or two. So, and you know, they might go up and down randomly in between, but I think that my personal thoughts is they'll go up. Biotech's another one that I've kind of invested in. And, you know, my page is more, you know, we started off AMC, so it was wild risk, but the further I get into it, the more I realize that the safest thing to do is put your money into like a S&P 500, a VU, ETFs like that. You know, obviously you're not going to see those huge 100% gains in a day and whatever, but it's a safe net. You know, someone like me that I own my own businesses and I set up my own retirement. I got to handle my own, you know, stuff like that. So that's why those plays are good for me. It's almost like a retirement fund for me in a way. So. Yeah. Anyways, man, I just want to jump in. Really, the main reason is just to kind of go over it because I have a lot of people ask me still about AMC. What are my thoughts? Where am I going? What am I doing with it? So that's what it is. You know, I'm not 100% saying it couldn't squeeze. It could. Obviously, I believe it could, but will it? I'm not sure. I don't think it will, but I would love to be wrong. I'll say that. Not selling my shares until I see, you know, and there's a lot of moving parts to this too, because if it does go up, like I said, if let's say it goes up to $6 tomorrow and the temptation to sell my shares is there, but I realize that there's other things formulating that might cause it to rip, then yeah, I'm still going to hold. But if it's just kind of the same thing and I think it's going to pump and then drop back down, then hey, I might just buy or sell my shares. Not all. You got to leave some. And then if it dips back down and watch sell rule 30 days, I might buy back in and try it again. So that's where I'm at with it. Everyone have a good day. Be blessed. Let's get rid of some peace.